First, we remove our lug nuts with a 21mm socket. Then, using a 14mm wrench allows us to remove our caliper. Using a flathead screwdriver, we remove our brake pads. Next, we spray some PB Blaster to help loosen up our mounting bracket bolts. We remove our rotor and then spray some PB on our ABS sensor bolt. Using a 10mm socket, we remove our bolt. Now we work on removing our axle nut. Now let's work on removing the 2 bolts and 1 nut holding on the lower ball joint to the lower control arm. Now we use a pry bar to separate our lower ball joint from our lower control arm. Next, we use a rubber hammer to help us remove the CV axle from our hub. Next, we pop off the little sensor shield. To work smarter, not harder, it's easier to reset the lower ball joint back into the lower control arm. Now let's remove the 4 bolts holding the wheel bearing hub in its place. Next, we use a hammer to help us separate the hub from the entire knuckle. Unfortunately, this one might be a little bit difficult, seeing as how we have to use some fire. Alrighty, that's an issue. Well then, seeing as how things didn't work out the way we would like it to, we have to remove the lower tie rod end and then remove the 2 strut bolts to get this entire knuckle out. Because, honestly, I think we're just going to replace it. After generously beating the tie rod end, we remove it. Then we work on removing our strut bolts. Alrighty, out with the old knuckle and in with the new. Well, salvage yard new. Now we work on installing our 2 strut bolts back into their respective places. Next, we work on reinstalling our tie rod end. Please don't forget that cotter pin. Now, I'm not sure if this car is going back up north, but we're going to clean whatever rust is there and then apply a nice thin layer of anti-seize to help the next guy out. Now we install our new wheel bearing, but due to the magic of editing, I was able to fit the backing plate right in because I accidentally forgot it. Now let's reinstall all 4 of our bolts that hold this hub onto the knuckle. Just to be safe, we're going to torque everything down to make sure that it's 100% accurate. Now, I don't remember the exact torque measurements, but I'll leave it in the description below. Well, we can't forget that shield. Let's tap it back on. Let us slide that axle back into place and secure it with its axle nut. Now, let's reinstall our lower ball joint back into the lower control arm. We can't forget to tighten that axle nut. As a safety precaution for the axle nut not to move, you want to make an indent in it. Of course, you can't forget the ABS sensor, so let's install that back in there and tighten it up with its 10mm bolt. To make this brake job really quick, let's install the rotor, slap back on that caliper mounting bracket, make sure you install the 2 caliper mounting bracket bolts, and of course we're going to use some Loctite to tighten that down. Then we're going to torque everything up. Then we're going to install our new pads, well, the old pads that were already there, but they're fairly new. So we're going to install those back in. Then we're going to take our caliper, slide it on over, and make sure to install the 2 caliper bolts. Obviously, you got to put some Loctite on this. I like putting Loctite on everything because it secures my job 100%. So don't forget that Loctite. Medium strength, not no high strength, medium. Finally, let's put the wheel back on, tighten everything up, and boom, it's done.